It started with a group text from my mom, which already felt suspicious. Family dinner this Saturday at La Renaissance. 7 p.m. sharp. Formal attire. La Renaissance. A place where the waiters wear gloves, the napkins get folded for you when you go to the bathroom, and the wine list needs its own table of contents. Our family doesn't do La Renaissance. We're more Chili's 2 for 1 than Wagyu tartare with foie gras foam. Still, it didn't feel optional. Not the way Mom worded it. I asked, "What's the occasion?" No one replied. Just a thumbs up from Liam, my older brother. Hannah, my sister, chimed in with her usual non-answer. "It'll be fun. Just be on time." Fun. Right. Let me back up. I'm the youngest of 3, 28 years old, single, childless, and apparently permanently stuck in everyone's mental image of me as the baby. Liam's married with 2 kids. Hannah's married too, no kids but definitely enjoys reminding everyone she gets adult responsibilities. I have a decent job in tech, live in a nice apartment, pay my own bills, but somehow, to them, I'm the guy who still needs to be told to eat his veggies and wear matching socks. Still, maybe it was an olive branch. A reset. We hadn't done a full family dinner in a long time, not one with everyone present and accounted for. Maybe they wanted to include me in something more meaningful this time. Maybe they realized I wasn't just a background character in the Liam Hannah show. I showed up early, wearing my best suit, navy, tailored sharp. Shoes clean. Hair styled. The hostess greeted me with that tight-lipped smile expensive places train their staff to perfect. She looked down at the reservation list and said, "You must be Jordan. The Connors party?" "Yeah, that's me." She nodded. "Right this way." I expected to be led to the grand table in the center of the room, where I already spotted my parents, Liam, Hannah, and their spouses sipping cocktails. But the hostess didn't go that way. She veered left, toward the side of the restaurant, past the kitchen doors, near the restrooms, toward a much smaller round table. That's when I knew something was off. She gestured to a chair and said, "You'll be here." Seated at the table were 4 kids. My niece, age 9, coloring a laminated kids' menu. My 2 teen cousins, ages 13 and 15, both glued to their phones, and someone I didn't even recognize, probably Hannah's husband's nephew or something, nibbling fries like he'd just been rescued from a cave. Then I saw it. A place card in scripted font. Jordan. At first, I thought maybe it was a mix-up. Some logistical error. Maybe I was meant to wait here until we all sat down together. But as I turned back to ask, I spotted the adults raising glasses. Laughing. Liam whispering something in Mom's ear that made her smirk. Hannah already deep in conversation with her husband, completely settled in. No one was waiting. No one noticed I wasn't there. I stood frozen for a beat too long. The teenage cousin gave me a once-over and asked, "You gonna sit or nah?" So I sat. What was I going to do? Storm out in a tux while my niece begged me to pass the ketchup? I sat. I smiled. I made polite conversation with a 12-year-old who wanted to tell me about Minecraft, and I tried not to let it get to me. But it did. Every minute that passed, it did more. The adults never glanced over. Not once. Not even my mom, who swears she worries about me all the time. The only person who made eye contact with me the entire first hour of dinner was the waiter, when he leaned over and asked if I'd like the kids' chicken or the mac and cheese. And here's the kicker, I wasn't the only adult without kids. My cousin Ray was there too, single, 35, and childless, but he was sitting at the main table, holding court with my dad about golf like he was a co-pilot of the family spaceship. So why the separation? That was the question that started crawling under my skin like an itch I couldn't reach. It wasn't just about a table. It was about the message behind it. And that message was clear. I didn't belong. Not with them. Not yet. I stared down at the menu and didn't even bother opening it. What was the point? They already assumed I'd want the chicken fingers like a third grader. My niece offered me one of her crayons. I took it, drew a sad little stick figure with a frown and thought, yeah, that's about right. The waiter returned with our drinks. The kids got mocktails and sodas. I got a small glass of sparkling water, unrequested. I noticed the adults across the room getting wine refills. Hannah was swirling her glass dramatically, like she was auditioning for a cooking show. Liam was laughing, probably at one of his own jokes. I watched their table, hoping to catch someone glancing over, noticing I wasn't there. Nothing. It was like I'd been scrubbed out of the family portrait and quietly reassigned to babysitting duty. I excused myself and went to the restroom, not because I had to go, but because I needed to breathe. I looked at myself in the mirror and actually laughed. There I was, dressed better than anyone at the adult table, looking like someone important from a financial magazine. And yet, back at the table, I might as well have been 12 again, still getting talked over at Thanksgiving, still eating from the plastic plate, while the grown-ups carved turkey like it was a sacred ritual I wasn't old enough to understand. I took out my phone and checked my messages. Nothing new. I stared at the group chat and considered texting. Hey, why am I at the kids' table? But I already knew how that would go. It's not that serious, someone would say. There weren't enough seats. Someone else would chime in. And if I really pressed it, Mom would eventually message me something like, please don't make a scene. This was supposed to be a nice night. Because that's always been the rule, don't make a scene. Be polite. Be agreeable. Even when they forget to include you in photos. Even when you find out about vacations after the fact. Even when you get handed the leftovers of attention, while your siblings get the spotlight like it's rigged with motion sensors. I walked back to the table. The kids were now arguing over who got to play a mobile game next. The 13-year-old cousin looked up and said, oh, we thought you left. I didn't sit down. Instead, I leaned in and said, hey guys, I've got to run. Tell your parents it was good seeing them. The kids barely registered it. One of them said okay, without looking up. I slipped my coat back on, walked past the adults' table without stopping. I didn't even make eye contact. Just kept walking. None of them noticed me. Or if they did, they didn't care enough to ask where I was going. By the time I hit the sidewalk, I could finally breathe again. Cold night air. Streetlights humming. I pulled out my phone, ordered a car, and waited in silence. Halfway home, I turned off my phone completely. Not just silent, off. No texts. No guilt. No calls asking if I was okay, in that tone that actually means, you're embarrassing us. I didn't cry. I didn't rage. I just sat there and let it happen, the full realization that my place in this family had been quietly defined for years, and tonight, they had simply written it in pen. But they had made one mistake. They assumed I would take it. Again. When I got home, I tossed my shoes across the hallway like they'd insulted me. Jacket flung over a chair, phone still off, apartment completely silent. Not even music. Just the kind of quiet that feels like a punishment, or a reset. I sat on the couch for a while, staring at the ceiling, then finally let out the laugh I'd been holding in all night. The kind of laugh that's not really funny, more like a sound your body makes when it runs out of patience. They actually sat me at the kids' table. They dressed it up with, not enough seats, and, thought you'd enjoy helping with the little ones. But they meant it. And I was supposed to smile, play along, be the cool uncle they don't take seriously. The emotional middle seat. The placeholder for when someone bails last minute. I grabbed a drink from the fridge, cracked it open, and started thinking about everything leading up to this. How I've always been the one they never quite took seriously. Not reckless, not irresponsible, just invisible. The third sibling who doesn't cause drama, who doesn't ask for much, who gets the Christmas gifts with the funny card instead of the thoughtful one. Liam? He gets praised for coaching soccer even though his kids clearly hate it. Hannah? She gets congratulated for hosting a wine night with 5 guests like she just catered the Met Gala. Me? I get asked if I'm still doing that computer thing. It's not like I've never spoken up before. I have. Quietly. Calmly. But every time, it's the same chorus. You're overthinking it. Or, come on, don't be sensitive. Somehow, standing up for myself always gets translated into causing a scene. So this time, I chose something different. I didn't text. I didn't call. I didn't say anything in the group chat. I just stayed gone. I let 24 hours pass. Then 48. By the time the third day hit, my phone, now back on, had racked up 21 missed calls. Most of them from Mom. A few from Hannah. 2 from Liam. 1 from an unknown number that turned out to be my dad, calling from the landline he swore he'd never use. Texts. Oh yeah? A parade of them. Mom. Hey sweetie, are you okay? We're worried. Hannah. You didn't say goodbye. That was kinda rude. Liam. Dude, it was just a table. Chill. Mom again. Everyone's been trying to reach you. Please call back. We're having a family emergency meeting tonight. Family emergency? I didn't respond. I just scrolled through them like a spectator watching a slow-moving landslide. It was amazing how fast the tone shifted. From confused concern to anxious guilt to thinly veiled panic. I wasn't angry anymore. Not really. What I felt was something colder. Something cleaner. Detachment. They didn't notice me when I was sitting 10 feet away from them, but now? Now that I'd gone full ghost. Now I was the center of the narrative. Now I was the storm. I flipped my phone face down and let them sit in the silence they'd earned. By day 4, the text messages started evolving. Less guilt, more panic. It was actually kind of fascinating. Like watching a shift in weather patterns. Mom. Honey, please just let us know you're safe. We're not mad. Hannah. You're being dramatic. Followed by 2 hours later. Hannah again. Okay, fine, maybe that table thing was weird. But you didn't have to vanish. Liam. We're having dinner again Friday. You should come. It's a redo, I guess? A redo. Like I was a computer program that glitched mid-dinner and needed to be restarted. Then came the voicemail from Mom. Her voice was breathless, half whispering like she didn't want Dad to hear her making the call. She said, Everyone's upset, but mostly confused. Your father said it was a mistake, the table thing. You know he didn't mean anything by it. Please don't let this blow up. Just come to the house. We're all meeting tonight. At first, I didn't plan on going. I wanted to ignore it like they ignored me. But then curiosity started gnawing at me. A family meeting wasn't something we did unless someone died or totaled a car. And I hadn't heard of any accidents, unless you counted my ego being hit and run by their table chart. So I went. I didn't dress up. Hoodie. Jeans. No fanfare. Let them see me exactly how they treat me, like background noise. When I got to my parents' house, there were 5 cars in the driveway. Everyone was already there. As I walked into the living room, conversation stopped like someone hit mute. Mom was perched on the edge of the couch like a soap opera character, eyes already glassy. Liam was leaned back in Dad's chair like he owned it. Hannah was biting at her thumbnail, her phone face down on her thigh, a sign she was either tense or preparing to pretend she didn't care. Dad spoke first. Of course he did. Glad you showed up, he said, not making eye contact. We didn't know what was going on with you. I sat in the empty armchair. The one that's always extra like me. I left dinner, I said simply. That much we figured out. Hannah muttered. I left, I continued, because you sat me at the kids' table, surrounded by crayons and chicken fingers. You didn't even notice I was gone. Dad looked irritated. There were no seats left. You had me RSVP, I said. You planned the seating. You made space for Ray, your golf buddy, but not me. He opened his mouth to counter, then closed it. No defense. Mom jumped in. It wasn't intentional, sweetheart. We just thought you wouldn't mind. The kids love you. And I love them, I interrupted. But I'm not one of them. There was silence. For once, no one rushed to paper over it. You always say not to make a scene, I added. But maybe the only reason I have to make one is because you don't see me until I disappear. That landed. I saw Mom flinch. Hannah looked down. Liam finally leaned forward, elbows on his knees. That's not what we meant, he said quietly. But I get it. Did he? Maybe. But even if they didn't fully get it, they knew now that I wasn't just going to keep swallowing the disrespect. They called it a family emergency because the one person they assumed would never push back finally walked away without saying goodbye. And now, the balance had shifted. The family meeting ended like a slow leak from a balloon, not with a bang, but with that awkward, sagging kind of silence. Nobody apologized outright. Nobody hugged. We just sort of fizzled. Like they thought the fact I showed up meant things were automatically back to normal. Spoiler, they weren't. We'll do better, Mom had said, her voice quivering like she wanted credit just for saying that much. Dad muttered something about not realizing it would bother me that much, which was probably as close to an apology as he could manage without combusting. He still never looked me in the eye. Hannah didn't say anything until I was halfway to the door. Then, under her breath, not quite soft enough. Seriously, all this over a table. Classic. Liam, to his credit, did that half-hug pat move that older brothers do when they don't really know what to say. I left feeling, not satisfied exactly, but something close to it. Not because anything had been fixed, but because for once, they were uncomfortable. They were squirming in the awkward space they normally reserved for me. For the first time, I was no longer the family's emotional coat rack. I'd taken myself off the hook, and they didn't know where to hang their guilt anymore. The next morning, I woke up to a simple text from Liam. Hey man, just wanted to say again, I get where you're coming from. You've been in the background too long. Not cool. I'll try to do better. I stared at the screen for a long time. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't drenched in guilt or coated in excuses. Just honest. I didn't reply right away. Not out of spite, but because I wanted to actually feel it. Process it. I couldn't remember the last time someone in my family acknowledged me without it being part of a joke or a request. That evening, I got another text. This one from Hannah. Hosting a brunch on Sunday. Adults only. You in? I blinked. Read it twice. No group chat. Just me. And the words, adults only, hit like a subtle apology disguised as a casual invite. I thought about ignoring it. Thought about declining just to prove a point. But I didn't. Because part of me was curious, and the other part wanted to see if this was a performance. Or a shift. Sunday came. I dressed casually. No pressure this time. Just a sweater, jeans, and clean sneakers. When I arrived, I half expected some awkward last-minute shuffle, maybe a folding chair on the side of the table. But no. There was a table for 6. All adults. Handwritten place cards. And mine was in the center. It was almost unsettling. I didn't know whether to laugh or brace for impact. Hannah greeted me like nothing had happened. No mention of the dinner, the walkout, the 20+ missed calls. Just a smile and, "You want a mimosa?" I nodded. Took a seat. The food was good, overpriced avocado toast, mini quiches, a fruit platter someone definitely bought and dumped onto a ceramic tray. Conversation was casual. The vibe was low-key. Nobody asked me to explain myself. Nobody brought up the kids' table incident, though the elephant was very much in the room. Still, there were no jokes at my expense. No sideline glances. No unspoken hierarchy where I got reduced to comic relief. For the first time and maybe forever, I was just there. Equal footing. A real adult, not a permanent understudy. Halfway through, Mom leaned across the table and quietly said, "I hope you feel more included this time." I met her eyes and said, "I feel seen." That's a start. It wasn't fireworks, but it was something. And something's more than I'd gotten in a long time. After brunch, people lingered a bit. There were some selfies, which, shocker, I was actually included in. As folks started filing out, Liam pulled me aside in the hallway. "You know," he said, "I think you scared them a little." "Scared who?" "Everyone. You disappearing like that? Not answering? They're used to you just swallowing stuff. You walked out, and they didn't know what to do. You shook it up." I smiled, just a little. "Good." He looked at me. "They're trying now. Might not be perfect, but you shifted something." Maybe he was right. Because the truth is, once the quiet one finally speaks up, or worse, walks out, everyone starts rethinking where the power really lies. Turns out, the person you ignore might be the person holding the whole emotional balance together. And once that person learns to stop needing your approval, well, you learn to need theirs. You'd think things settled after that brunch. And for a week or so, it did feel like something shifted. Hannah sent me a few random memes, which in her world was the equivalent of hugging someone. Liam forwarded me a job posting he thought I might find cool, even though I wasn't job hunting. And Mom sent a photo of her dog in a sweater and added, "He misses his favorite grandson." That was the closest she'd get to saying she missed me. But underneath it all, I still felt the echo of that night. The way I sat surrounded by children while the adults toasted over duck confit. I wasn't bitter, not anymore. But I wasn't over it either. I had decided something that night I hadn't told anyone. I was going to stop showing up out of habit. No more automatic yes. No more pretending I didn't notice the patterns. So when the next family event came up, a big extended family-style dinner at my aunt's house, I waited. Watched the RSVP messages roll in. Watched my name get tagged in the group chat by Hannah, asking if I was coming. I didn't respond. 3 hours later, Liam messaged me directly. "You heading to Aunt Diane's? I think Mom's expecting you." Still, I didn't reply. I didn't want to be petty. I just wanted to be intentional. For once, I wanted to be the one who decided what I gave, not the one who just filled space. That night, my phone buzzed with updates, photos, videos, blurry clips of cousins doing karaoke. Someone tagged me in a picture and wrote, "Missed you tonight, Jordan." But I knew they didn't actually mean me. They missed the version of me who always showed up, smiled, and stayed quiet. The one who filled empty chairs and brought extra wine just in case. The next morning, I had 8 unread texts. Most of them were the usual guilt trip cocktail, a little sweet, a little manipulative, just enough to make you question your own boundaries. "Mom, dinner was lovely. Wish you'd been there. Everyone asked about you. Hannah, you okay? You're kinda going dark again. Liam, you know they take it personally when you don't show up, right?" And then this one, from Dad, of all people, the man who could barely string 3 words together when I was seated 10 feet away. "Don't punish the whole family just because someone made a mistake." I stared at it for a long time. The idea that I was punishing them. As if walking away from being sidelined was a personal attack. As if not tolerating something suddenly made me the aggressor. I didn't reply. I just let it sit there. Like a rock dropped in a still pond. A couple of days later, Hannah tried calling. Twice. I let it ring out. Then Liam called. I answered that one. "Hey," I said flatly. "You good?" "Yup." "You're not coming to stuff anymore?" "I'll come when I want to." He was quiet. Then he said, "You know they're freaking out a little." "I'm aware." "You just gonna ice them out forever?" "No. But I'm also not signing back up for the same role." He sighed. "I mean, you made your point." "That's the problem," I said. "It shouldn't have taken a point to be treated with respect." There was another pause. This time longer. And then he said something I didn't expect. "Fair enough." Maybe it didn't fix everything. But it told me what I needed to know, that the shift had stuck. And I wasn't going to go back. Just when I thought the dust was finally settling, life threw me a curveball. the kind you don't see coming but somehow changes everything. About a month after I started setting these boundaries, I got a call from my mom. Her voice was quieter than usual, less defensive and more hesitant, like she was holding something back. "Jordan, can we talk?" she asked softly. I hesitated for a moment. Part of me wanted to slam the phone down. Another part, the part that still wanted to believe in family, said maybe this is a start. So I agreed. The conversation was a surprise. She confessed that she hadn't fully realized how deep the hurt ran, how much walking out that night shook me, and how, in turn, it shook the family. The adults had whispered in corners, questioning if they'd pushed me too far. Even Dad, who never admits fault, had been distant and quiet at the usual Sunday brunches. He'd stopped teasing Liam and Hannah, stopped making those jokes only I never laughed at. Mom said she wanted to make things right. Not with empty apologies, not with hollow promises, but with real actions. She'd planned a weekend retreat for the immediate family, no distractions, no phones, just us. It was a chance for all of us to reconnect, without the usual masks. I wasn't sure. I was cautious. But I agreed. Because if there was a chance to rebuild on new terms, I wanted in. That weekend was unexpectedly good. We cooked meals together in a cabin kitchen, played board games late into the night, and shared stories I hadn't heard before. Conversations were messy, raw, sometimes uncomfortable, but real. No kids' tables, no side eyes, no silences filled with unspoken words. For the first time in years, I felt like I belonged. We talked about the past, the unspoken hurts, the expectations, and the ways we'd all been complicit in this dance of invisibility and apology. I saw them, my parents, my siblings, as people trying their best, scared to break old patterns but willing to try. It didn't erase the years of feeling sidelined or ignored. It didn't magically fix everything overnight. But it planted a seed. A seed for something different, something better. That weekend reminded me that family is complicated. It's messy. But it's also where the hardest fights happen, fights to be seen, to be heard, to be loved on your own terms. And maybe, just maybe, it was the start of a new chapter. Since that weekend retreat, things haven't magically fixed themselves overnight. Family dynamics don't change with a single conversation or a grand gesture. They change with small, consistent actions, with clear boundaries that are set and respected, with everyone slowly learning that love doesn't mean silence about how you feel or what you deserve. I stopped showing up just because it was expected. I started showing up when I wanted to. When it felt right. When I was genuinely ready. And on my terms. That's a hard lesson for someone who's spent years shrinking to fit a role carved out by others. A role where your voice is background noise, your feelings are inconvenient, and your presence is optional. But now, I'm learning to value my own voice. To insist on being seen, not just tolerated. My parents, to their credit, have been trying. Invitations come without conditions or unspoken hierarchies. Seating arrangements are no longer surprises or punishment disguised as logistics. Sometimes, when we're all around the table, the laughter is real, not the polite, practiced kind you fake for photos or holiday cards. I won't pretend that every dinner is perfect, or every conversation easy. Family is never that simple. There are still misunderstandings. There are still moments where old habits sneak in and the walls go back up. But the biggest change has been in me. I stopped apologizing for needing respect. I stopped accepting scraps of attention as if they were a feast. I stopped waiting for them to notice me, and started demanding to be treated like a full person. Family isn't a perfect fairy tale. It's messy. It's complicated. It's full of contradictions and pain, but also love, forgiveness, and growth. Sometimes it's where you learn that walking away isn't the end of the story, it's the beginning of being truly seen. And that makes all the difference.